His feet never missed a step, but his hand touched his ear twice in 30 seconds. Something was wrong, and only one person in the arena could hear it. The fourth song had just started. 3,000 people packed into a venue that smelled like popcorn and sweat. Stage lights carved through the haze. The Jackson 5 moved in sync, tight formations they'd rehearsed 100 times. Michael was 13 years old, center stage, hitting every mark. His brothers flanked him, voices locked in harmony. The crowd was loud, hands in the air, bodies moving. Everything looked perfect. But Michael's hand went to his ear, just for a second. A quick touch, like brushing away a fly. Then it happened again, 15 seconds later. Same hand, same ear, same small movement that most people wouldn't notice. But the stage manager noticed. He stood in the wings, headset on, watching every performer. He'd been doing this for 12 years. He knew when something was off, one look, one breath, one decision. The stage manager keyed his mic. "Sound, you see that?" In the booth at the back of the arena, Rodriguez leaned forward. He'd mixed live shows since before Michael was born. He adjusted a fader, scanned the stage through binoculars. "See what?" Michael, touching his ear. Rodriguez watched. The song rolled on. Michael spun, hit the next lyric, smiled at the crowd. He's probably just hearing himself funny in the monitors. Twice in 30 seconds? Rodriguez pulled up the monitor mix. Everything read normal. Vocals, instruments, backing track. All clean, all balanced. The playback machine sat in the rack beside him, reels turning steady. No red lights, no warnings. "Everything's fine," Rodriguez said. Michael wasn't adjusting anything. He was listening, because something in the stage monitors had changed. Not the volume, not the balance, the pitch. Just slightly, just enough. The backing vocal track had shifted. Maybe half a step, maybe less, but it was there. A brightness that wasn't there 10 seconds ago. Michael kept singing, kept dancing, but his brain was working double time. The live band was in the key of A. His voice was in the key of A. His brothers were in the key of A. But the track coming from the monitors, that was somewhere else now. He tried to ignore it. Tried to lock into the rhythm. Trust the band, trust his body. But the dissonance sat in his head like a splinter. Every time the backing vocals came through, they clashed with what he was singing. Not enough for the audience to hear, not enough for the band to notice, just enough to make him feel like he was singing off-key, even though he knew he wasn't. The song had 2 minutes left. Notice the shift. Michael didn't stop. He didn't wave his arms or call for help. He kept performing, because that's what professionals do. He adjusted his phrasing, pulled back slightly on the harmony parts, gave himself space to hear the band instead of the track. He made it work, but it cost him. Every 8 count was a calculation. Every spin required extra focus. And his hand kept going back to his ear, checking, confirming, making sure he wasn't imagining it. The stage manager saw it. Rodriguez saw it. Michael's brothers didn't. They were locked into their own parts, their own monitors, their own worlds. The audience didn't see it either. To them, the show was flawless. But backstage, tension was building. Then, 70 seconds in, everything changed. 70 seconds into the song, the pitch shifted back. Michael felt it immediately. The backing track dropped back into place, settled into the key of A, locked in with the band. The dissonance vanished. His shoulders relaxed. His next spin was smoother. The harmony felt easy again. He smiled. Not a stage smile, a real one. And kept going. Rodriguez saw the smile through the binoculars. He frowned. Stage, he just relaxed. What changed? I don't know, but he's good now. The song ended. The crowd roared. Michael and his brothers took their positions for the next number. But as soon as the applause started, Michael walked straight to the side of the stage. The stage manager met him there. What happened? The track went sharp, middle of the song, about 30 seconds, then it came back. The stage manager blinked. Sharp? Yeah. Not by a lot, but enough. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the headset. Stage, what's he saying? The stage manager repeated it. There was a pause. Then Rodriguez came back, careful. That's not possible. Playback's locked. Tape speed doesn't drift. Michael heard it through the headset. He leaned closer. It did. I heard it. Michael? The stage manager hesitated. He liked the kid. Everyone did. But this was a big claim. Either the gear was malfunctioning or Michael was wrong. And if the gear was malfunctioning, they had a serious problem. But if Michael was wrong, well, he was 13. Are you sure? Michael looked at him. No hesitation. I'm sure. This moment mattered. Michael wasn't guessing. He wasn't being difficult. He was reporting what his ears told him, and his ears didn't lie. He'd grown up in studios. He'd spent thousands of hours listening to playback, checking mixes, comparing takes. His pitch reference wasn't learned. It was built in. Absolute pitch. The kind of hearing that lets you identify a note without a reference tone. Most people don't have it. Most musicians don't have it. Michael did. The stage manager keyed his mic. Rodriguez, can you check the playback? I'm looking at it right now. Everything's reading fine. Can you check the tape? Rodriguez pulled the playback machine partway out, running his hands over the housing, checking the reels, the heads. His assistant leaned in. What are we looking for? I don't know yet. He rewound to the start of the fourth song and pressed play. The reels turned, smooth, steady, no wobble. But when he put his hand on the machine, he felt it. Heat. Not a lot, but more than there should be. When did we turn this on? 2 hours ago. Pre-show check. Rodriguez nodded slowly. The machine had been running for 2 hours in a booth with no ventilation, under stage lights that kicked the ambient temperature up 10 degrees. Heat causes expansion. Expansion affects moving parts. And if the capstan expands even slightly, the tape speed increases. Not by much, but enough. He pulled a strobe disc from his toolkit and set it on the spindle. Under the booth's work light, the marks flickered, rotating just a fraction too fast. He checked the calibration dial, set correctly. But the machine wasn't running correctly. It was running hot. And when it ran hot, it ran fast. Rodriguez keyed his headset. Stage, tell Michael he's right. The stage manager's eyes widened. He looked at Michael. Michael didn't look surprised. He looked relieved. What happened? Thermal drift. Machines running 1.5% fast. Probably peaked mid-song, then cooled slightly when we switched tracks. Rodriguez rubbed his face. I didn't catch it. Meters didn't catch it, but the kid did. Remember, this wasn't just about hearing a wrong note. This was about hearing a wrong note while singing, while dancing, while 3,000 people screamed, while stage lights blinded him, while his brothers harmonized 2 feet away. Michael's brain processed all of that. And still, he isolated the one element that didn't belong. The next song started late. They adjusted the playback machine, added a cooling fan, recalibrated the speed. Michael listened to a quick monitor check. Good now. The show continued. The audience never knew there was a problem. But backstage, the crew knew. Rodriguez knew. He'd been mixing live sound for 15 years. He'd worked with legends. And tonight, a 13-year-old had just taught him something about his own gear. After the show, Rodriguez found Michael in the dressing room. The kid was sitting on a bench, unlacing his stage boots, talking with his brothers. Rodriguez knocked on the doorframe. Michael looked up. "Hey, you got a second?" Michael stood. They walked into the hallway. Rodriguez crouched down so they were eye level. "How did you know?" Michael shrugged. "I just heard it." "But you were moving. You were singing. How do you hear something that small with all that noise?" "I don't know. I just do." Rodriguez nodded slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small chromatic tuner. He turned it on and played a note on his phone. "What note is that?" Michael listened. A. Rodriguez checked the tuner. A, 440 Hz. He played another. "This one?" D sharp. "Correct." He played a third. "And this?" Michael tilted his head. "That's F, but it's a little flat." Rodriguez looked at the tuner. F, 437 Hz. Slightly flat, barely noticeable. He stared at the kid, then he stood up. "You've got something special, Michael. Don't lose it." "I won't." Rodriguez walked back to the booth. His assistant was packing cables. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, but from now on, we check tape speed before every show, and if that kid ever says something's wrong, we listen." What you heard was only the surface. Underneath the lights and the choreography and the screaming crowd was a 13-year-old boy whose ears worked differently. He didn't hear music the way most people do. He heard it in layers, in frequencies, in relationships between sounds. When the playback drifted, it wasn't just wrong. It was a specific kind of wrong, a mathematical wrong, a frequency mismatch. His brain flagged it immediately. The story spread. By the next city, the entire crew knew. By the end of the tour, it was legend. The night Michael caught the drift, sound engineers started asking him questions, testing him, playing notes and asking him to identify them. He was always right, not sometimes, always. But here's what most people miss. Michael didn't want to be right. He didn't want to prove anyone wrong. He just wanted the sound to be correct. Because when the sound was wrong, the performance suffered. And if the performance suffered, the audience felt it, even if they didn't know why. That's what Michael understood at 13 years old. Notice the weight of it. Being able to hear things no one else can isn't always a gift. Sometimes it's a burden. Sometimes you're the only person in the room who knows something's broken, and you have to decide. Do you say something and risk looking difficult? Or do you stay quiet and let it slide? Most people stay quiet. Michael never did. Years later, a journalist asked Rodriguez about that night. He'd moved on to bigger venues, bigger acts, but he still remembered. "I've worked with a lot of artists, but I've never worked with anyone whose ears worked like Michael's. That kid heard the world in a different key, and he was always, always right." The journalist asked if it ever caused problems. Rodriguez smiled. Only for the people who didn't believe him. Because that's the thing about being right when no one else can hear it. Eventually, they learn. They test the machines. They check the calibration. They find the heat. They see the 1.5% drift. And then they realize something. The 13-year-old dancing on stage just saved the show. One look, one touch, one decision. That's all it took. Michael heard the drift. He reported it. And even though the show kept going, even though the audience never knew, he made sure it didn't happen again. Because the sound mattered. The truth mattered. And if his ears told him something was wrong, it was. And that 13-year-old kid? He never stopped listening.